My husband gave my sister $6 million for saving his company. Everyone applauded, except her 10-year-old son, because he knew the truth. The money had always been mine. The first person to stop clapping was my nephew. That should have warned me. 10-year-old Theo sat across the long cedar dining table with his hands pressed between his knees, staring at his mother as if she had just said something he was not supposed to hear. Around him, everyone else was celebrating. My husband Graham stood at the head of the table on the back deck of the vacation house we had rented outside Camden, Maine. Behind him, the Atlantic was turning silver under the evening sun. There were 12 of us around the table. My parents, Graham's younger brother Nathan and his wife, my sister Claire, Theo, 3 family friends, and me. The glasses were still cold from the white wine. Lobster shells sat cracked open on blue ceramic plates. Somebody had left a bowl of melted butter too close to a candle, and the surface had gone cloudy. It should have been an ordinary, expensive summer dinner. Instead, Graham lifted his glass toward my sister. "To Claire!" Everyone smiled. Claire lowered her eyes modestly. She was very good at modesty. It had taken me years to understand that. Graham continued, 12 years ago, when I had nothing, when Mercer House was 3 weeks from closing, and the bank wouldn't extend another $1, one person believed in me enough to risk everything she had." My mother touched Claire's arm. Claire gave a tiny, embarrassed laugh. "Graham, you don't have to." "I do." He looked emotional. That was the part that hurt more than I expected. Not the announcement. The sincerity. My own family told me to walk away. Investors stopped returning calls. I had 43 employees who didn't know if they'd get their last paycheck. I knew all of this. I remembered the numbers better than he did, because I had been there. I remembered the cheap apartment in Boston where Graham and I were living then, the radiator that clicked all night, the ramen, the invoices spread across our kitchen floor. The night I found him sitting against the refrigerator at 2 a.m. with his face in his hands. I remembered him whispering, "Lauren, I think I ruined everything," and I remembered lying beside him until sunrise, while $186,000 sat in an inheritance account under my name, money he did not know existed, money my grandmother had left me, money I transferred 3 days later. Graham smiled at Claire. She saved the company. Applause broke out. My father raised his glass. Nathan whistled. Claire looked at the table. I looked at her. For half a second, she looked back. She knew. Of course she knew. Then Graham said, "Which is why, effective September 1st, Claire will receive 7% ownership in Mercer Hospitality and a permanent advisory seat." My hand stopped around my wine glass. 7%. Nobody noticed except Theo. The company had recently been valued at roughly $92 million. 7% was not a thank you basket. It was more than $6 million. My mother gasped, "Oh my God!" Claire covered her mouth. "Graham," he grinned, "you earned it." And there it was. Not received it. Not deserved something. Earned it. Claire stood and hugged him. My husband held my sister tightly while my family applauded her for spending money that had belonged to me. Theo still wasn't clapping. His eyes met mine. Then he looked away very quickly. That bothered me. At the time, I thought it bothered me because children notice tension adults pretend isn't there. I was wrong. Claire finally released Graham. She looked overwhelmed. "I don't even know what to say." I did. I had several options. The first was, actually, Claire never gave Graham a cent. The second was, that company survived because I emptied almost every dollar my grandmother left me. The third was less elegant. Instead, I lifted my wine glass. To Claire. Everyone turned toward me. Claire went still. I smiled. To being rewarded for the stories people prefer to believe. Nobody spoke for about 2 seconds. Then my father laughed awkwardly. "Lauren." Claire's smile tightened. Graham looked at me. "What does that mean?" I took a sip. "Nothing." That was my specialty. Nothing. For 12 years I had built an entire marriage out of that word. Nothing is wrong. Nothing happened. Nothing bothers me. Nothing needs to be explained. People think silence is passive. It isn't. Silence changes the shape of rooms. It teaches people where they can put their furniture. And I had given Claire 12 years to move into mine. After dinner, everyone drifted toward the fire pit. I stayed behind gathering plates. Graham came through the sliding doors while I was scraping lobster shells into the trash. "You embarrassed Claire," I kept scraping. "How?" "That toast." I congratulated her. "You know how you said it." I turned. Graham was 41 then, tall, slightly gray at the temples, tan from 3 days on the water. The kind of man magazines liked photographing beside old brick hotels because he looked like he belonged to both money and labor. He had built Mercer Hospitality from one failing boutique hotel into 18 properties across New England. I was proud of him. That was part of the problem. I had been proud of him for so long that I had confused his success with proof that my choices had been correct. "You gave my sister more than $6 million without speaking to me." His expression changed. "It's my equity." "We're married." "Yes, Lauren, married, not fused into one person." I stared at him. "That's interesting," he sighed. "Please don't do this tonight." "Do what?" "Turn this into something ugly because Claire is finally being recognized." Finally. I almost admired the word. "Recognized for what?" His jaw tightened. "You know what she did." I looked past him. Claire was outside near the fire pit, laughing with Nathan. Theo sat alone on the stone wall. "Yes," I said. "I know exactly what she did." Graham waited. I didn't continue. That irritated him more. "You've always had this thing about Claire." "This thing?" "You act like everything she receives somehow came out of your pocket." I nearly laughed. Instead, I washed my hands. Then I said, "Good night, Graham." He followed me into the hallway. "We rented this place so everyone could relax." "I'm relaxed." "You are visibly furious." "No, Furious was available about 8 years ago." That stopped him. I walked upstairs. Our bedroom overlooked the water. Graham had arranged the trip for our 11th wedding anniversary. 2 full weeks. Family during the first week, then just us during the second. He had told me we needed time together. I had believed him. That was another habit I was becoming tired of. I changed into a t-shirt and stood at the window, watching everyone around the fire. Claire was sitting in my chair, not literally mine. Nothing at a vacation rental belongs to anyone. But I had been sitting there every evening since we arrived. Tonight she occupied it beside Graham. Theo came around the fire pit. He whispered something to Graham. Graham put a hand on the boy's shoulder. Theo leaned into him. Graham laughed and pulled him closer. Then Theo said something that made Claire sharply turn her head. Even through the closed window, I saw her expression change. She stood. She took Theo by the arm, not violently, quickly, urgently, and led him inside. 2 minutes later, somebody knocked on my door. Theo. He was wearing navy pajama pants and an old Red Sox shirt. "Aunt Lauren?" "Hey." He hovered. "You okay?" He nodded, then shook his head, then shrugged. Children are very bad liars when nobody has trained them properly. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." There was that word again. He looked behind him, then held something out. A photograph. Old, slightly bent. Graham, much younger, standing in a hospital room holding a newborn. My stomach went cold. I looked at Theo. "Where did you get this?" "Mom's suitcase." I looked back at the photograph. Graham was maybe 31. Theo was 10. The timing arrived in my head before I wanted it to. "Is that you?" Theo nodded. Behind Graham in the photograph, Claire was visible in a hospital bed. I could only see part of her face. "What were you doing in her suitcase?" Theo stared at his socks. "I was looking for my charger." "Theo." His eyes filled. "She told me never to show you." Something inside me went very still. "Why?" "I don't know." Then he said the sentence that destroyed the rest of my night. "Mom said you wouldn't understand why Uncle Graham was there." I stared at the picture. Graham holding Claire's newborn. Claire in the bed. Theo's father had never been part of the family. Claire always said it was complicated. She had refused to name him. For 10 years. I had never pushed. Because unlike my sister, I believed boundaries meant something. Theo swallowed. "Aunt Lauren." "Yes?" "Is Uncle Graham my dad?" There are questions children ask that adults should never answer while angry. I knew that. so I crouched in front of him. I don't know. His face crumpled a little. But whatever the answer is, none of this is your fault. He nodded. Then I heard Claire in the hallway. Theo! He jumped. Claire appeared in the doorway. Her eyes dropped to the photograph. All the color disappeared from her face. What are you doing? Theo immediately stepped toward her. I'm sorry. She snatched the photograph from my hand. Go downstairs. Mom. Now. He left. I stood. Claire closed the door. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I asked, Is Graham Theo's father? She looked almost offended. Are you serious? Answer me. No. Too fast. Maybe. Or maybe I had already decided what I wanted her answer to mean. Why was he holding Theo in the hospital? He visited me. You specifically told Theo I wouldn't understand. Claire looked toward the door. You're taking something a child repeated and turning it into whatever story makes you feel most wounded. I laughed quietly. That's rich. What is that supposed to mean? You've spent 12 years accepting gratitude for something you didn't do. Her face changed. There it was, the old secret, alive between us. Not here, she whispered. Why? Worried someone might hear? Lauren, Graham just gave you 7% of his company. I didn't ask him to. You didn't refuse. Her eyes hardened. That is not the same thing, isn't it? No. She stepped closer. You want to talk about 12 years ago? Very much. Then tell him. That shut me up. Claire smiled without humor. Exactly. I hated that she was right. She opened the door, then paused. You've had 12 years to tell your husband the truth. She looked back at me. Don't suddenly pretend I'm the only person who benefited from the lie. Then she left. I did not sleep. At 2:17 in the morning, Graham's phone lit up on the dresser. He was asleep beside me. The message preview showed Claire's name. Thank you for tonight. You have no idea what this means to us. Us. I stared at that word. Not me. Us. A second message arrived. Theo's going to remember this forever. I wish I could tell you that I behaved rationally after that. I didn't. This is where I need to admit something about myself. I had spent years believing that because I was quiet, I was reasonable. Those are not the same thing. Sometimes silence is self-control. Sometimes silence is cowardice wearing tasteful clothes. And mine had begun as cowardice. 12 years earlier, Graham and I had been dating for 16 months when Mercer House started collapsing. It had been his father's dream. One old hotel in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. 32 rooms, bad plumbing, beautiful windows, terrible books. When Graham's father died, Graham inherited the debt along with the keys. He tried everything: bank loans, private investors, selling equipment, skipping his own salary. Nothing worked. One night, I found a foreclosure notice under a stack of takeout menus. He hadn't told me. When I confronted him, he said, I don't want your help. I hadn't even offered any. That was Graham, proud before anyone could pity him. A week later, my grandmother's estate closed. I received $211,400. Graham knew she had left me a little money. He didn't know how much. I decided to invest $186,000 into Mercer House. I told Claire first. We were sitting in her apartment eating grocery store sushi. You can't, she said. Why? Because if the business fails, you lose almost everything. I know. And if it succeeds, I don't need anything. Claire stared at me. You always say that right before doing something stupid. I asked her for a favor. Graham knew Claire had done well in pharmaceutical sales. He also knew she had recently received a large commission. I asked her to pretend the investment came from her, just until Mercer House stabilized. Then I would tell him. Claire refused twice. I cried. That is the humiliating truth. I cried because I loved a man too proud to let me save him honestly. Claire finally agreed. She wired the money through an LLC we created together. Graham accepted it. He tried to pay Claire back 3 years later. She told him not to worry, without asking me. That was the first time the lie changed ownership. I confronted her. She said, He's finally doing well. Why humiliate him now? I let it go. Then Graham started inviting Claire to company events. She believed in me when nobody else did. I let it go. When Claire lost her job 4 years later, Graham hired her as an outside brand consultant. I let it go. When Theo was born, Graham set up a college account. Claire saved me. I'm not letting her son struggle. I let it go. When he paid for Theo's private school after Claire's divorce, that was never a marriage fell apart. I let it go. When he called her every year on the anniversary of the investment and sent flowers with a card saying, "We owe you everything," I let it go. By the time I wanted the truth back, it had appreciated, like property, like stock, like resentment. The next morning, Claire avoided me. Graham didn't. He brought me coffee on the porch. Oat milk, 1 sugar. He remembered. He always remembered the little things. That's what makes certain marriages harder to leave. Cruel people are easy. Complicated people make you negotiate against yourself. He sat beside me. Are we going to spend the whole vacation angry? I'm not sure. At me? At myself, mostly. He frowned. That sounds ominous. I looked at him. Why were you at Theo's birth? His entire expression changed. Not guilt, exactly. Fear, that was worse. Where did that come from? Answer me. Claire had nobody. What does that mean? Theo's father wasn't there. So you were. Yes. Why? He stared at me. Because you asked me to go. I blinked. What? You were in Chicago with your mother. Memory moved slowly. My mother had been having surgery. I had flown out. Claire went into labor early. I remembered calling Graham. Please check on her. She's scared. The photograph suddenly changed shape in my mind. But not enough. Why does Theo think you might be his father? Graham's face went blank. He thinks what? He asked me. What? He stood immediately. Lauren, no. Claire told him I wouldn't understand why you were there. I have no idea what Claire told him. His reaction looked genuine. But by then, I no longer trusted my ability to recognize genuine. Did you ever sleep with her? No. No pause. No anger. Just no. Before me? No. During us? Jesus, Lauren. Answer. No. He stared at me. Then something harder entered his face. Is that what this is? What? The 7%? I laughed. You really think I'm jealous of Claire because you didn't give me enough company shares? You own part of Mercer Hospitality already. 3%. A wedding anniversary gift 6 years earlier. Claire was about to own more than twice what I did for saving a company with my money. But I still didn't tell him. That is the part of the story where people want to reach through the screen and shake the narrator. I understand. I wanted to shake her too, but confession becomes harder the longer you benefit from avoiding it. If I told Graham the truth, I would not simply expose Claire. I would have to admit that I believed my husband's pride mattered more than his right to know who had financed his company. I would have to admit I had manipulated him. I would have to admit that every grateful dinner, every speech, every opportunity he gave Claire had grown from a lie I planted. So instead, I said, forget it. Graham looked exhausted. You keep asking questions and then punishing me for not knowing the conversation happening in your head. That one stayed with me because it was true, and I hated him for saying it before I was ready to admit it. The next discovery happened 2 days later. It was raining. Everyone had driven into town except Theo and me. He was assembling a puzzle at the kitchen island. I was searching a drawer for batteries when I found a blue envelope. Not ours. Claire's handwriting. Graham. Theo. Inside was a printed statement from a Fidelity custodial account. Balance, $418,206. Established 10 years earlier. Initial deposit, $100,000. Contributor, Graham Mercer. I stared. $418,000. For my sister's child. Theo saw the paper. Oh, I turned. You know about this? Mom says Uncle Graham made it because of what she did for him. What she did? He nodded. Saving the hotel. Of course. Then Theo said, she said when I'm 18, I'll understand why he takes care of us. The words hit differently now. Why did you ask if he was your father? Theo's face went red. Kids at school. What kids? They said no uncle gives somebody that much unless he's actually their dad. My anger shifted. Slightly, not disappeared. Shifted. Did your mother ever tell you Graham was your father? No. Did she imply it? Theo shrugged. She just gets mad when I ask about my real dad. There it was. The difference between evidence and interpretation. I noticed it. I ignored it. That was my mistake. That afternoon, I called my attorney. Not a divorce attorney, not yet. A corporate attorney named Rachel Kim, who had reviewed my minority share agreement years earlier. I asked one question. If a company grants ownership based on a materially false account of a historical contribution, can that grant be stopped before issuance? Rachel went quiet. Possibly. What would you need? Proof. I had proof. The original inheritance statement, the LLC documents, the transfer authorization, emails between Claire and me. One of them read, "I hate this, Lauren. Tell him when he's back on his feet." My response, "I will. I promise." I had never kept that promise. Rachel asked, "Does Graham know?" "No." Another silence. "Lauren, before you do anything legal, tell your husband." I should have listened. Instead, I asked her to prepare a notice preserving my rights. Then I made the second choice I regret. I contacted Claire's biggest client. Claire had built a successful consulting business around a very specific personal story: risk, loyalty, courage. She spoke at corporate retreats, leadership conferences, women in business events. Her website included a paragraph about how, at 29, she had risked her entire financial future to back an entrepreneur everyone else had abandoned. She never named Graham. She didn't need to. It was the foundation of her brand. My sacrifice had become her origin story. That changed something in me. Before that, I could tell myself Claire had merely allowed a family misunderstanding to continue. But this, she was selling it. Literally. I printed the page. At dinner that night, Claire found it beside her plate. She looked at me. "What is this?" "Your biography." My mother glanced between us. Claire picked up the paper. Her face tightened. "Can we talk privately?" "No." Graham looked up. "What's happening?" I folded my napkin. Claire has built part of her consulting career around the Mercer House investment. Claire stood. "Lauren, how many times have you told that story?" "Stop." "How much money have you made speaking about the sacrifice you made?" My father frowned. "Lauren, what are you doing?" I looked at Claire. "Tell them." Her face went pale. Graham slowly set down his fork. "Tell us what?" Nobody moved. The rain tapped against the windows. Theo was upstairs. "Thank God." Claire whispered, "Not like this." I smiled. "That's what you told me 12 years ago." Graham looked at me. Then Claire. "What happened 12 years ago?" Claire closed her eyes. And still, I gave her the chance. I wanted her to say it. I wanted my sister to hand my sacrifice back voluntarily. She didn't. Instead, she said, "Lauren is upset about the shares." Something inside me snapped, not loudly, cleanly. I stood. "No." I looked at my husband. "I'm upset because Claire never invested in Mercer House." Graham blinked. Claire whispered my name. I continued. "The money was mine." Silence. My mother stopped breathing. Graham stared at me as if I had spoken another language. "What?" $186,000. I could hear my heartbeat. My grandmother's inheritance. "No." "Yes." He looked at Claire. She was crying now. Not performing. Actually crying. Graham stood. "Claire," she whispered, "Lauren asked me to." His eyes came back to me. I had imagined this moment hundreds of times. Sometimes he hugged me. Sometimes he cried. Sometimes he laughed in disbelief and called me insane. Never once had I imagined the expression he actually wore. Betrayal. Not gratitude. Betrayal. "You lied to me." I swallowed. "Yes. For 12 years. I was going to tell you." "When?" I couldn't answer. Claire did. She kept putting it off. I turned on her. "You could have told him." "And destroy your marriage?" "My marriage?" Graham laughed once. A terrible sound. "You both decided what I was allowed to know." My father stood. "Graham, Lauren was trying to help you." "I understand that." "No, you clearly don't." He looked at me. "I spent 12 years thinking Claire saved my company." "I know." "I hired her." "I know." "I gave her clients." "I know." "I paid for Theo's school." My stomach twisted. I know. I created a $400,000 account for her son because I thought I owed this family a debt. Claire cried harder. Graham! He turned toward her. And you let me. Claire wiped her face. At first I thought Lauren would tell you. And then? She said nothing. And then? He repeated. Claire finally whispered. It became complicated. Graham laughed again. No, complicated is taxes. You accepted my gratitude for 12 years. Claire's face hardened through the tears. And Lauren accepted the marriage that gratitude helped protect. Everyone looked at me. That was Claire's gift. Even cornered, she knew where the weakest wall was. She loved being the invisible martyr, Claire said. Claire, my mother warned. No, she wants honesty? Claire looked straight at me. Fine. Her voice shook. Lauren loved knowing she was secretly the reason Graham succeeded. She liked being noble without having to risk being rejected. That hurt because it contained truth. She could have told him any day. Claire pointed toward me. Any anniversary, any Christmas, any time he thanked me. But she didn't. Because you kept taking more. And you kept letting me. Graham sat down. He looked older, not dramatic, just tired. I had wanted the truth to free me. Instead, it sat in the center of the table, making everyone look uglier. The 7% grant was suspended the next morning. Not because I demanded it. Because Graham called the board himself. Claire lost her advisory position before she technically received it. Then the professional consequences began. Rachel told me to do nothing else publicly until the company lawyers reviewed the situation. I ignored her. That was the revenge, not the truth. The next part. I sent documentation to the executive committee of a leadership conference where Claire was scheduled to give the keynote. I included the original transfer, the emails, her website biography. I wrote 6 sentences. No insults, no accusations beyond what I could prove. Within 48 hours, Claire was removed from the conference. 2 clients suspended contracts. Then somebody leaked the story. I still don't know who. Maybe one of the clients. Maybe someone at the conference. Maybe a member of our extended family who found humiliation entertaining. An article appeared online. Consultant's famous risk everything story belonged to her sister. Claire's photograph was underneath. By evening, it was everywhere, inside our small professional circle. Not national news, worse in some ways. Local enough that everyone involved knew someone. Former co-workers, parents at Theo's school, Mercer hospitality employees, people who had applauded Claire's speeches. Her clients disappeared quietly. That is how professional reputations usually die. Not explosions, calendar cancellations. She called me 14 times. I answered the 15th. You destroyed my business. I stood on the deck looking at the ocean. No, I corrected your biography. You sent those documents. Yes. You wanted this. Yes. Silence. Then Claire said, Theo heard about it at camp. My anger faltered. What? 2 boys showed him the article. I closed my eyes. Claire's voice cracked. They asked if his mother was a fraud. I gripped the railing. That wasn't supposed to. What did you think would happen? I didn't send anything to the press. You sent it into the world. I had no answer. He's 10, Lauren. I know. No, you don't. Then she said something I will never forget. You wanted me humiliated so badly you forgot humiliation doesn't stop at the person you aim it at. She hung up. I found Theo an hour later near the rocky edge of the property. He was throwing shells into the water. I sat beside him. He didn't look at me. Your mom told me what happened. He threw another shell. I hate school. I'm sorry. Are you? Yes. Did my mom steal your money? The question was too simple for the truth. No. He looked at me. She accepted credit for money that was mine. That's stealing. Not exactly. Everyone says she's a liar. I swallowed. She did lie. Are you a liar? There it was, the question nobody else had asked so cleanly. Yes. Theo stared at me. What did you lie about? I told Uncle Graham the money came from your mom. Why? Because I thought I was helping. He frowned. That's stupid. A laugh escaped me. Yes, children can reduce 12 years of adult rationalization to 2 words. That's stupid. Theo threw another shell. Mom says my dad left before I was born. I looked at him. Okay. She said Uncle Graham came because nobody else did. Something clicked. The photograph, the hospital, the suspicious messages, us, Theo, the college account, all the evidence I had stacked into a story because I was angry. Your mom never told you Graham was your father? No. Never? He shook his head. She said he was the closest thing I had. My stomach sank. I had spent days treating the child like evidence in an affair that had never happened. Theo looked at me. Did you think he was? I could have lied. I didn't. Yes. His face twisted with embarrassment. That's gross. Despite everything, I laughed. He almost smiled. Then he said, I wish everyone would stop making me part of stuff. That sentence hurt more than Claire's accusation, because he was right. The adults had turned him into a symbol. To Graham, Theo had been repayment. To Claire, he had been protection. To me, for 3 poisonous days, he had been proof. Nobody had simply let him be a boy on summer vacation. That evening, Graham and I finally talked alone. The family had begun leaving early. Vacations are fragile things. One good betrayal, and suddenly everyone remembers work. Graham sat at the end of the dock. I joined him. For a while, we listened to water tapping against the posts. Then he asked, Did you really think Theo was mine? Yes. He shook his head. Why? The photograph. The account. Claire being secretive. And me? I looked at him. What about you? Did 11 years of marriage count as evidence? That landed exactly where it deserved. I didn't know what to believe. No. He looked at the water. You decided what to believe. I said nothing. He continued, Do you know why I gave Claire the 7%? Because you thought she saved the company. Partly. That surprised me. What else? He rubbed his hands together. Because I was planning to step back. I stared. What? I've been talking to Nathan about taking over more operations. Why didn't you tell me? His smile was bitter. That question is doing a lot of work in this marriage. I looked away. He continued. I wanted more time. With who? You. That was worse than almost anything. He had planned the second week of the vacation for us. He had been reducing travel. The equity gift to Claire was supposed to settle what he believed was his oldest debt before changing his life. While I was quietly deciding he had chosen my sister over me, he had been preparing to choose our marriage more deliberately. The irony was almost vulgar. I'm sorry, I whispered. He looked at me. For which part? I thought about it. For letting you believe the wrong person saved you. He nodded. For thinking Theo was yours. Another nod. For going after Claire publicly. He was quiet. Then I said, But I'm not sorry the truth came out. I know. I can't be. I know. He looked toward the house. Neither can I. For the first time, I understood that our marriage might survive the truth, and still not survive what the truth revealed about us. Graham had spent years placing my sister on a pedestal without noticing how often that pedestal stood between his wife and him. Claire had turned borrowed gratitude into an identity, and I had watched both happen because admitting the truth would have meant admitting my first act of love toward Graham was also an act of manipulation. 3 days later, Claire came to the house. Everyone else was gone. She looked exhausted. No makeup, hair tied back. For once, no polished armor. Graham was upstairs. Theo was with my parents. Claire stood in the kitchen. 3 clients terminated. I heard. My biggest contract suspended me. I heard. She laughed without humor. Congratulations. I don't feel congratulated. You wanted consequences. I did. And now, I thought of Theo. Now I know they traveled farther than I intended. Claire leaned against the counter. You always do that. Do what? Decide what everyone needs, and then act surprised when we have opinions. I almost snapped at her. Then I stopped. Because again, truth. I said, You stole my story. Yes. No excuse. That surprised me. She looked at the floor. At first I was keeping your secret. I waited. Then Graham started thanking me. Her mouth twisted. Do you know what it felt like? No. To have someone look at me like I had done something brave? I stared at her. Claire had always been the difficult daughter, dropped classes, changed careers, wrong relationships. Our parents compared us constantly. Lauren is stable. Lauren thinks ahead. Lauren doesn't make everything harder. I had hated those comparisons. I had never considered what it felt like to be on the other side. Claire continued, "Everybody had a version of me already. Graham didn't. So you let him believe a fake one." "Yes." "At my expense." "Yes." "And then you built a business around it." She closed her eyes. "Yes." There was nothing satisfying about hearing her admit it. I wanted resistance. Resistance is easier to punish. "Why didn't you stop?" She gave me a sad smile. "Why didn't you?" There it was again. The answer beneath every answer. Because lies become architecture. After enough years, removing one wall threatens the whole house. Claire reached into her purse. She placed a document on the counter. The 7% grant. Unsigned. I told Graham I won't accept anything. It was already suspended. I know. She placed another document down. Theo's custodial account. I also asked him to stop contributing. I stared at her. "You don't have to do that." "Yes, I do. That money belongs to Theo now." "Exactly." She looked at me. "I'm done letting adult guilt finance my son." That was the first decision Claire made during the entire mess that I respected immediately. She walked toward the door. "Claire," she stopped. "What?" "Who is Theo's father?" Her entire body tightened. For 1 second I regretted asking. Then she said, "His name is Matthew Voss." I didn't recognize it. "He was married." I stayed quiet. "I didn't know at first." Her voice dropped. "When I found out, I ended it. I was already pregnant." "Does he know?" "Yes." "Does Theo?" "No." "Why?" "Because Matthew wanted no involvement except money, and I decided a 10-year-old didn't need to inherit an adult man's cowardice before he even understood it." I thought about that. Then I asked, "Does Matthew pay support?" "Yes." That surprised me. "Then why did Graham?" "Because Graham thought Matthew disappeared completely." "You lied to him too." Claire nodded. "Yes." Another lie. Another person deciding someone else couldn't handle truth. Our family was apparently very generous that way. Before she left, Claire looked back. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "The night you asked me to pretend the money was mine, I thought you were the brave one." She opened the door. "By year 5, I thought I was." Then she left. Graham and I did not divorce immediately. That would have made a cleaner story. We went home. We lived in the same house. We slept in different rooms for 2 months. We went to counseling. We had long, humiliating conversations where neither of us got to be entirely right. He admitted he had made Claire's sacrifice too important because gratitude felt easier than examining the emotional distance growing inside our marriage. I admitted I had used silence as control. When he didn't behave the way I hoped, I withheld information instead of risking conflict. He asked me once, "If I had known the money was yours 12 years ago, what did you think would happen?" "I thought you'd refuse it." "Probably." "And then Mercer House would have closed." "Maybe. So I was right." He looked at me. "No." That annoyed me. "I saved the company." "Yes." "Then how was I wrong?" "Because you decided saving the company mattered more than letting me decide what kind of man I wanted to be." I had no response. That was the moral wound beneath everything. I had loved him. I had helped him. I had sacrificed for him. All true. And I had still taken away his choice. Claire's business eventually survived. Smaller, less glamorous. 2 speaking agencies dropped her permanently. Several clients never returned. She rebuilt around actual work instead of the heroic origin story. For almost a year, she and I barely spoke. Theo was the reason we eventually did. Not reconciliation, logistics, birthdays, school events, my parents refusing to choose sides, the ordinary machinery of family. Graham kept the college account intact but stopped contributing. Claire hated that at first, then accepted it because the money legally belonged to Theo, not to any of us. As for the 7%, Graham did something I did not expect. He didn't give it to Claire. He didn't give it to me either. He created an employee ownership pool. When he told me, I almost laughed. Very diplomatic. "No." He looked at me. Very overdue. That was fair. A year after the Maine trip, Graham and I returned to the coast alone. Not the same house. I couldn't have done that. We rented a small cottage 30 minutes south. No family, no announcements, no speeches. On our last evening, we walked down to the water. He asked me something I still think about. If you could go back, would you give me the money? Yes. Would you tell me it was yours? I took longer with that answer. Yes. Even if I refused? Yes. He nodded. Then I asked him the same kind of question. If you could go back, would you still help Claire? Yes. Even knowing she lied? Yes. That surprised me. He looked toward the water. She was raising Theo alone. Whatever she did to us, he didn't do it. That was when I knew our marriage had changed. Maybe matured, maybe simply lost its illusions. There are people who think surviving betrayal means returning to the person you were before it. I don't think that's possible. I didn't become softer. Claire didn't become innocent. Graham didn't become perfect. We simply stopped calling secrecy protection. A few weeks later, Theo had a school project about family history. He interviewed all of us. One question was, what's one thing our family believes that isn't completely true? My mother said we were all good cooks. My father said that nobody in the family held grudges. Graham said Mercer House had been an overnight success. Claire looked at me. I looked at her. Theo waited with his pencil. Finally, I said, sometimes our family believes the person telling the story is the person who made the sacrifice. Theo wrote it down. Then he asked, who actually made it? I almost said me. For 12 years, that was the answer I wanted. Instead, I looked around the table. At Claire, who had lost half her career because she couldn't stop wearing a lie that once belonged to me. At Graham, who had spent years repaying a debt to the wrong person because I had decided his pride needed protecting. At Theo, who had been embarrassed in front of classmates because I wanted his mother exposed. And at myself, the woman who had started the entire thing because she thought love gave her permission to decide what another person should know. So I told him the only answer that still felt true. More than one person. Theo frowned. That makes the project harder. Claire laughed. Graham did too. I smiled. Most true things do. And that was when I finally understood what Claire had stolen from me. It wasn't $186,000. It wasn't Graham's gratitude. It wasn't 7% of a company. She had stolen the identity of being the woman who saved him. But before I could hate her completely for wearing it, I had to remember something uglier. I was the one who handed her the costume.